All right, I think we'll just get started. My name is David Curle. I'm with Thomson Reuters. I'm the Director of Market Intelligence for the legal business. And I put this session together in part to sort of make sense of this picture. This is just a sample of the groups and organizations that are working on legal innovations issues around the world. Some of these groups are formal, some of them less formal. Some are affiliated with large organizations, some are independent. The interesting thing about this is that I think many of these didn't exist 5 years ago. If you want to look for substantive change in the industry, sometimes you can get a little frustrated that we don't see progress in terms of technology adoption and some of the issues we were actually just talking about in this last trial session. But the good news is there are hundreds, if not thousands, of like-minded people working on this stuff all around the world. And I don't think any of these are going away anytime soon. So there's all kinds of organizations represented here. Some are startup incubators, academic research centers, legal data archives, professional associations, advocacy groups. And behind each of them, there are dozens of people from different backgrounds. Academics, CEOs, researchers, activists, law students, computer scientists, law firms, lawyers, and in-house counsel, design professionals, any number of different roles other than just legal technologists and lawyers. And each of those organizations has kind of its own focus. Some are focused on legal education, some on open data, some on artificial intelligence, some on startups, some on access to justice, big law, small law. Some want to save the legal industry, some of them want to blow it up. Some are global in scope, and some are fiercely local. It's all here. And they all do different things. They put on conferences and meetups. They publish reports and white papers. They train a new generation of tech-savvy lawyers. They build stuff, they tear stuff down, they argue, they cajole, they convince, and they carry on the dialogue of an industry in transition. And I think this is a bit of the message we heard in the morning session, and I've heard threads of this throughout the whole day, this idea that there are agents outside of this echo chamber that we need to recruit to get to the changes that we're all working towards. And I think that's a theme that we'll hear on this panel. So one last thing. You'll notice Codex is right in the middle there. I put them there for a reason. I think Codex has really been central to a lot of the activity here, the success of Codex in galvanizing interest around legal tech. And I think they deserve that spot. But what I wanted to do with this session was to bring in some representatives of some of these other groups and hear their stories about how they're going about trying to implement some of the change that we're talking about. So I'm going to briefly introduce them, and then they're going to introduce themselves by telling them in a little more detail about their work. Jules Miller is CEO of Hire and Esquire, and she's also one of the co-founders of Evolve Law, a legal tech community and innovation catalyst. Dan Linna is a professor of law at Michigan State University, and he leads the Center for Legal Services Innovation, which is also known as Legal R&D. Rebecca Williams is co-founder of DC Legal Hackers, one of the earliest and also one of the largest and most active chapters on the Legal Hackers Network, and she has a day job at GovX.
I do have a day job.
Bues is the co-founder of the Law Port at Bucerius Law School, and he'll also be starting as managing director of a startup called Leverton soon. And last but not least, Jason Moyse is one of the principals at the LegalX cluster, which is part of the Mars Innovation District in Toronto, and he's also manager of legal business solutions at Elevate Services. So that's our panel, and I thought I'd just start things off by asking you, each of you, and we can just go down the line here, to take a few minutes and talk about your background, the background of the organization, who you serve, what your activities are, that sort of thing, just so we get acquainted.
Cool. So hello, everyone. I'm Jules. So I will caveat all of this with I am a non-lawyer. So keep that in mind. I have been working on my day job of Hire and Esquire for 5 years now. And the thing that and we're a legal labor marketplace. We work with customers of all sizes and the only W-2 marketplace out there that we're aware of, at least. But what was striking to me as someone who wasn't from the legal industry was that it took a really long time for things to happen, and I was very enthusiastic and optimistic that things would happen faster, and they didn't. They're happening, but slowly. So what happened is the legal tech community is fairly amazing and small, and I'm based in New York, so what I started to do was have happy hours in New York with the other legal tech founders, and we found that we were all having the same challenges, which was sales, raising money, scaling as fast as possible, hiring, those types of things. So me and another legal tech founder named Mary Jutton from Tracklight formalized basically this informal network of legal tech founders who were helping each other already, because we realized that we're not, even if there's some overlap, we're not competing against each other, really. We're competing against lawyers using more technology and adopting the legal tech industry as a whole. So we formalized Evolve Law in September of last year, and in the last few months since then, we've done, I think it's now 28 events in 11 different cities. We have over 1,000 people on our mailing list. We have 82 members now, most of whom are legal tech entrepreneurs and some innovators, and one law firm in Davis Wright Tremaine who is awesome and has been an early adopter since the beginning. And the goal of it is to really, I'd like in my jaded way to say, it's to incite the fear of missing out, the FOMO in lawyers, because not necessarily, there's stuff happening, but I think just talking about it in a more consistent way is really important to make it not seem as scary. So instead of doing large events, we do lots of small events around the country, around Canada. We've got members in Australia, in the UK, in Israel, all over the place. And the idea is to just keep that drumbeat up and do things from an entrepreneurial perspective. We do the stuff that I want as an entrepreneur. So that's our focus.
I'm Dan Linna. I'm a professor of law and the director of Legal R&D, the Center for Legal Services Innovation at Michigan State University College of Law. I'm also the co-founder and lead organizer for the Chicago and Detroit Legal Innovation meetup groups. And I've been at MSU Law now for just over a year and a half. Immediately before that, I was an equity partner at Honigman, Miller, Schwartz & Cohn, an Am Law 200 law firm in Detroit. I was a litigator there. I did a lot of supply chain litigation, business litigation. Also did information privacy and security law work. While I was at Honigman, I was teaching as an adjunct at the University of Michigan Law School, teaching negotiation there. I was teaching also at Michigan State, working with Dan Katz and Renee Kanaki as part of the Reinvent Law program. Immediately before I went to law school, the law was a second career for me. I worked in information technology, designed enterprise information systems, web-based information systems. Also got a master's degree in public policy, which those experiences have really shaped the way I think about legal service delivery. When I was at Honigman, I really enjoyed my practice at Honigman. I wasn't really looking to do something different. The opportunity, though, came up at Michigan State to join the Law College as Assistant Dean of Career Development, and I really thought there was a great opportunity there to work with Dan Katz and Renee Kanaki and leverage the Innovation and Technology program in connection with career development. So I've been there then now for it's about 20 months, and we've made a lot of changes in career development, built a new team around that, but I'm happy now to be moving on for that, and focusing 100% of my time on legal R&D, and the school's invested the resources in that. And our mission, quite simply, is to improve legal service delivery so that we can increase access for everyone, really across from individuals to large corporations. And the way that we do that is through process improvement, the lean thinking, design thinking, project management, establishing metrics, using data analytics, and then technology. And this is a technology conference, but one of the things that I would note is that I mentioned technology last, and that's because really process improvement has to come first, in my opinion. And in the legal industry right now, there's really a lack of standards and best practices, and it's really on lawyers to establish standards and best practices for legal service delivery. And there are huge opportunities if we as lawyers do that. And we need to do that as lawyers to demonstrate the value that we can provide in legal service delivery. And by standardizing and creating best practices, really that's the way we can really best leverage legal technology. And the way we're pursuing our vision with legal R&D, there are three parts. We're teaching, we've got an innovative curriculum, doing research and development, and then engaging with the legal industry. So we've got a curriculum that's based on training 21st century T-shaped lawyers. And the whole idea of a T-shaped lawyer is someone who has the deep substantive legal expertise, but kind of the horizontal part of that T is these other skills that it takes to be successful in the 21st century. Understanding business, the business of law, understanding data, process improvement, technology, communication, leadership, right? All those other skills that traditionally haven't been taught really in law schools. On the research and development and engagement part, a couple of field projects we've done this last year. We've been working with a local district court, went in there with Ken Grady, did a week-long Kaizen project, brought a team of students in, working. We go to Gemba, right? This is not top-down. We go to where the work is done, working very closely with the judges, working with the court staff, mapping the process of what we were doing there as landlord-tenant matters and looking at it from the point of view of self-represented litigants. And we've implemented some improvements there. We're also doing a project with Elder Law in Michigan where they deliver legal services through a hotline. And again, we've got a team of students working with us, working very closely with the lawyers there, delivering legal services, working with Jim Manley from the Demmer Center at the Business School at Michigan State, mapping the process, applying lean, looking for where can we really standardize, come up with best practices, and then leverage the technology that's in place there to deliver better solutions. This is a new endeavor, trying to do more and more with this. Want to work with law firms, corporate legal departments, legal aid organizations, courts. I mean, if any of this is interesting to you, I'd love for you to reach out to me and let's have a dialogue about how we might be able to work together.
Thanks.
Oh, should I turn this on at all? Is this on?
I think it's ready to go.
Okay. I'm Rebecca. I'm so happy to be here. So it's extra fun for me to be here because I obviously care passionately about these issues, but I get to actually talk to you about like my non-day job work, what I just do for pleasure, even though it's a lot of work, is I co-organize DC Legal Hackers. I'm also on the board of Legal Hackers, the mothership in New York. I first got involved with the legal hacking meetup groups in New York City when I lived there and was working there. And then I moved to DC, and another member of the New York Legal Hackers meetup group was also moving to DC for work, so we were like, let's franchise. So I think we were the second of all the legal hacking meetup groups, and now there are 26 on 4 different continents, and we have like these, like we have North American check-ins and like global check-ins. We had our first Congress last year. It's a total big tent, everyone is welcome, bottom-up type of organization, and we're sort of building out and supplying relevant funding to groups as best we can, and some infrastructure and guidelines. If folks are familiar with the Code for America Brigade setup, it's a little bit like that, but it's more oriented around law and technology. Yeah, so, and then my background, I've like rejected law as like a formal practice, but I did do it before. And now I do policy and government data work by day. And a lot of my day job has sort of seeped into some of my organizing in DC. So we have some pretty exciting partnerships with, like, our first hackathon was with Legal Services Corporation in DC. Last year we had an accessibility hackathon with the White House where Vint Cerf keynoted, so that was pretty exciting. We're in talks now with like the Copyright Office. Like we get the benefit of being in DC with a community that is very legally oriented at all times, and a lot of like smart technical minds as well. I remember when we were organizing like our very first kickoff DC Legal Hackers meetup, we called it an issue spotting happy hour. And the co-working group that we hosted it in, the woman who ran the co-working group was like, oh yes, I used to be a lawyer. Like there's so many people that went to law school that just like live in DC and are not lawyers anymore. So it's very fun. But yeah, we're totally bottom up. I think a lot of the examples that we have either created within our group or also celebrated elsewhere have been just people that really care that have the skills with technology and or law and want to move the needle forward. Another just fun anecdote. So we host an award show every year called the LegalX for legal hacking. And our first year, one of the winners was our attorney friend who created a Twitter bot for whenever the Supreme Court opinions had edited a line in it, and it would tweet out. And then later this year, after that person created that bot, and it was covered in the Times and everything, the Supreme Court now issues red line edits whenever they change something. I'm not saying it's a direct result of the Twitter bot, but we've also seen real change based on what we do, which is a lot of it is fun, but it's fun with some very talented, nerdy folks. And we do panels and hackathons and all that sort of thing. And if you want to sponsor any of our chapters or the mothership, please let me know. And also, if you're interested in starting a local chapter, come talk to me after the panel.
Thank you. My name is Micha, or Mike, the English version. I'm very happy to be here. I will going to introduce you to two projects that we have initiated under the roof of the Bucerius Law School. The Bucerius Law School is a private law school in Hamburg, which is in the northern part of Germany. The two projects, the first project is called the Bucerius Law Port. What is the Bucerius Law Port? The Bucerius Law Port is a platform where all relevant stakeholders in the legal industry can come together to share information, to work and implement certain projects and ideas with regard to legal tech and legal innovation. It's a place where they can actually experience what it means that the legal industry is going to change in the next few years. The two projects I will present to you are very new. We just officially announced the start of the Bucerius Law Port last month. So as you can imagine, everything is very fresh. It's in a process of implementation of refinement. And we are in a process to really set it up at the moment. The organizational setting of the Bucerius Law Port is quite straightforward. The Center on the Legal Profession at the Bucerius Law School is responsible and in charge for the development of the Bucerius Law Port. We will have a board, faculty, and fellows who will advise and support the Bucerius Law Port in their various capacities. The aim of the Bucerius Law Port is really to establish an academically grounded network at the intersection of law, technology, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Our primary aim is to achieve an alignment of theory and practice with regard to legal tech and legal innovation. And in my sense, that really lacks in the German legal market. As you might have noticed, it's a very similar approach to what is done at Legal R&D or in Codex, which we gladly took as a role model or as a reference point to develop something similar in the German market or beyond. The law port tries to serve all the relevant stakeholders in the legal industry, ranging from law students to lawyers, from law firms to law departments, from investors to IT professionals, and the aim is to bring all those groups together. The first project is an open innovation lab where law firms and legal tech startups can work together in a very informal and open environment to discover what it could mean for them to be a 21st century law firm and to be 21st century lawyers. The second project I want to briefly mention here is a legal tech association, a European legal tech association, which is also supported by the Bucerius Law School. The idea of this association is pretty simple. We want to try to lobby and advocate for legal tech in the public domain, because a huge problem is in Germany, it's maybe bigger than here in the US, that the overall awareness for legal tech is very little. So we want to try to advance and raise the overall awareness for legal tech in this regard. And the the European Legal Tech Association is open for all companies interested in legal tech, and it should be an echo chamber for everyone who's interested in this subject. Yeah. So very briefly from me.
Oh, thanks very much. Hi everyone. I'm Jason Moyse, and I wear a couple of different hats. One is as co-instigator of LegalX out of the Mars Discovery District in Toronto. I'm also a manager with Elevate Services, which is a global alternative legal provider. I'll talk a little bit about what Mars and what LegalX does. So Mars is an innovation center based in Toronto, 1.5 million square feet, and it's been around a little over a decade. And it has had a typical emphasis initially on sort of the healthcare sector. In the last couple of years, there's been an emphasis on clean tech and fintech. And along with my partner, Aaron Solomon, at the back of the room, most recently we've brought legal and legal tech to the fore of what Mars does. So Mars is often mistaken for an accelerator. It's not quite an accelerator. What it does is it basically marries advice, counsel, and access to capital for startups. There's about 1,200 startups that are serviced through Mars. Although it's based in Toronto, it services sort of a global market. And about a year ago, I was here. I was standing on the steps having my coffee at Codex, and I was talking to a few people about this idea of LegalX and launching it. And in fact recruited some of our initial speakers at our launch event when I was at Codex last year. So what is it and what do we do? Between Aaron and I, we counsel about 50 to 60 startups on all kinds of issues, including their go-to-market, their product. We give them market intelligence. And we have very successfully elicited capital. We've raised about $3 million in the last year for a number of our startups, including folks like Beagle, who Cian is in the room. Cian had occasion to attend along with Aaron and the Premier of Ontario on a trade mission to China, and that resulted in capital as well as increased exposure. The flip side of that, and Aaron and I, we sort of started this. We ourselves and Mars is a quasi-government and charity. So we take no equity and we take no fees from the startups that we assist, but we do have a business model, and part of the emphasis and part of my interest is marrying sort of startup to large enterprise, because there's actually an innovation movement afoot in large enterprise, including large law firms. So we actually have a couple of partnerships. One with McCarthy Tetra is about a 500 fee earner firm in Canada. Blake's, Thomson Reuters, of course, and the Canadian Bar Association. And so on the flip side, we assist startups, but we also assist those larger organizations to drive innovation, perhaps in new ways where it wasn't before, all serving the legal vertical. And we do that a couple of different ways. Aaron and I keep telling each other we're not events people, and yet we keep putting on events. And we actually do that to drive exposure and bring. I and both Aaron have very deep and wide global networks, and so we're bringing people into the market and mashing people together in new ways that haven't been seen on some of the traditional sort of circuits of innovation conferences. We recently did an event in Toronto with McCarthy's where we had managing partner of Axiom was the keynote. We had a number of other significant players in the space come and speak. Something is happening in Canada. Toronto is punching way above its weight when it comes to legal innovation. We think we're a part of that, along with some other significant players in our space. And we're very much looking to drive a global footprint. The startups that we work with are from all over the world, and increasingly we're looking to work with those innovation partners, because that is how the lights stay on, and we're looking to work with global partners as well. I do want to highlight some of the startups we see, and it's really fascinating what's out there. So of course I've mentioned Beagle, which for us has been an easy one to put in front of some of our corporate partners, and they can see the value right away. And so we're able to offer, if not early access, early beta, or early pilot status for some of those folks with some of our startups. But we've also seen, a lot of legal tech is geared towards practice innovation or helping lawyers, and we have our fair share of those. What I find most interesting are those that are creating brand new ways of creating value in the legal space. And so as an example, I like to pull this one out. I think the founder, Lee, is in the room. We have a startup, Directive Communicate. There he is. Hi, Lee. Directive, I'll say it wrong. It's DCS, Directive Communication Services, I believe. Systems, excuse me. And so think of, and this is a tech crowd, so you'll appreciate this, think of your estate planning and think of the residue of your digital life. And if you were to pass away, how would your spouse deal with all of your digital footprint, whether it's your Facebook account, which keeps blasting out notifications for time immemorial. Someone's got to go in and deal with all of those types of things. But because ideally you don't want your spouse to have to deal with that. But think of the financial footprint you might have, all those digital accounts you have that have some kind of wealth or financial asset tied to them. Lee's product goes in and sweeps all of those, your entire footprint, and that then becomes part of your estate plan. So it's interesting when you think about that. That could be your online, your banking accounts, et cetera, but it could be things like your consumer retail cards that you might have. I said jokingly in a meeting with people, well, maybe it's a poker account. And actually, no, a lot of people have those types of accounts, and there's financial implications for that. So if you think of that, that is a legal services that's being provided, because his main distribution channel is through estate planning lawyers. That's the type of stuff I like. That's brand new value being delivered via legal tech innovation, and not necessarily delivered by lawyers. And that's all the stuff, notwithstanding that I'm a lawyer, that hits all of the gates that I really enjoy, as well as the regular fare practice innovation stuff.
Great. Well, thanks to everybody. This was really fascinating. I mean, I think you'll agree there's a lot going on here. And one of the fundamental questions I have, again, given the context that we're here, we're several hundred people who are all really excited about legal tech. And I guess my next question is, what good is it? I mean, are your organizations reaching out outside of that echo chamber that we sometimes see at these kinds of events? Are we reaching practitioners? Are we reaching folks in the consumer market, as you just described, Jason? Are there any examples that you can give me where these kinds of communities are really making a difference in sort of bringing legal tech to the wider industry?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So as the entrepreneur here, our motto for Evolve Law is JFDI, like just fucking do it. Like we're going to get the stuff done. And so sometimes we leap a little bit before we think about planning, but we just do it. And I think the idea for us is we know that a lot of times this is an echo chamber, and we need to use what we can do. I hate doing events too, but somehow I do a ton of events. It's using that as a platform. That's the base point, but then what do we do with that? We record everything, we put all the videos online, so it's a way for people to brand themselves. We use our social media channels to market other legal technologies and their press releases. What else we do? We do podcasts for a lot of the talks that we do at the events. So it's a way for people to self-promote, and their followers, whether they're part of the echo chamber or not, on their social media accounts, or if they're sharing it with their potential clients or their existing clients. Like, I reach out to all of my existing clients when we have an event like this and say, hey, I'm going to be in California and I'm speaking on this panel. They ignore me. They don't show up, but they hear about it, and I use it as a sales tool. So I think the general gist is we build platforms, and then it's up to the entrepreneurs to actually use that platform to spread it themselves. And if you're a good entrepreneur, you're hustling, you're going to use what this echo chamber perhaps is giving, and you're going to take it to the people that aren't necessarily listening and make them listen.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more opportunities to engage these communities more, and I mean, that's one of the things we're trying to do at Legal R&D is get better connected with practitioners, bring in courts, bring in people. We've had a lot of good traction with legal aid organizations, for example, who are very interested in the things we're doing. I mean, in this, you see a lot of innovation in that space that I think is going to be bubbling up. We've had some good successes with the Chicago Legal Innovation Meetup Group. Actually, every one of those meetings we've had been holding at large law firms, at Skadden, I mean, some of the biggest law firms in Chicago. It's great to. We don't necessarily get a lot of the lawyers there coming. We get some, but I think part of it is, you know, I've seen kind of a change, I think, in the ways there's been some of the discussion around this, and maybe it's because some people have been taking the task for talking so much about disruption and disrupting the legal industry. Which was really, I think, kind of off-putting maybe to a lot of people. And when you approach them differently and try to explain how this is relevant and what this is really about, and like one of the things I want to do a much better job with Legal R&D about is some of the students, many of the students don't get it and don't know what it's about. And I've got a couple of students who tease me. They're like, oh, they think we're building robots to practice law. And it's like, well, okay, if that's their perception of what we're doing, of course I understand whether they're threatened by it or not interested. So how do I do a better job of messaging how this really applies and the opportunities? Because I think there's a lot, and not everyone in this room probably agree, or in this panel necessarily agrees with me, but to me there's a lot of space here for recognizing the value that lawyers can provide and engaging with lawyers and showing that these are tools to help them actually improve the delivery of legal services.
I would say one of the big surprises for me has been the appetite of big law to drive innovation, because it's very easy to bash big law as that they're rooted in the status quo, and I actually find that's not really the case, particularly at the leadership level. They all want to move forward and drive innovation. Their biggest challenge is two things. Number one, they're not sure what to do, and that's sort of how we're able to work with them, is to try and give them some direction on that. And then, of course, the second challenge they have, and this is an expression I use often enough, is that there's nothing wrong with the brain of big law when it comes to being enlightened and wanting to drive innovation. The problem is the coordination of the arms and legs. When you've got 500 disparate fee earners and you're trying to drive innovation, you can't be all things to all people, and so. That's been the biggest surprise for me, and to your question, that's where I would not have guessed that there was appetite for this type of work.
So, just a few things that legal hackers do to reach more people. We're obviously events based and about community, so it's always like we have some core members, but DC Legal Hackers is like 900 members now, and every meetup is like there's like a core, I don't want to say how many are like consistent members, but often we have like new people based on whatever the subject matter of either our meetup or our hackathon is. But we do a lot of those meetups like directly at the law schools in DC. Georgetown Law also has a couple courses that are relevant. They've been doing Iron Tech Law forever, but like also they're having new coursework. One of my co-organizers might start teaching one. So that's great. But then there's also some sort of like soft influence in DC. So we have like meetups on like the Apple versus FBI case, but we have people that are like work on the Hill in the room at the meetup, which is amazing. And then the last thing is just like cross-pollination. So there's like a variety of different expungement apps throughout the country, and some of those have been like direct connections, if not with the Legal Hackers chapters, with people that know the Legal Hackers chapters. And those don't exist everywhere, but it's like this is something that you could build pretty easily if you understand the expungement rules in your jurisdiction. Get your local developers to work on it.
Yeah, I would like to add two brief remarks. So from my perspective, I think we're too early stage and too immature in the German market to have a problem to be eco chamber. So what we try to do and need to do is to amass a critical amount of people who are interested and to bring those people together, because we see a lot of people who are interested but fighting on their own at the moment. So this is what we need to try to do in Germany at the moment. The second point is maybe we see a lot of interest from big law firms as well, but it's more like it's more in the stage that they really want to understand what is going on. It's not very specific. They have heard about legal tech. They know something is coming, and now they want to understand what legal tech is and how they can act towards the change. So yeah, it's very, very, very early on.
Well, let's turn that around too, and look at it the other way. I mean, in what sense are your organizations bringing other disciplines into legal and legal tech? I know Dan, particularly, the Law School of Michigan State has been doing a lot of classes, multidisciplinary classes, teaching law students about design, engineering, data science, all kinds of things, bringing design thinking into the industry, all of those other disciplines. And if you could give some examples of stuff like that that's going on in your organizations, and also, what are the challenges of that? Because I get the sense that this is new. It's new for both the lawyers involved, the legal technologists, and these other disciplines. That working together within this industry is kind of new.
Well, we have a bit of that happening. We have a lot of interest in design thinking. And the event we held recently, we had Sarah Prevet is a very well-renowned entrepreneur. She actually just did a show, I think, with Randy Zuckerberg, Quit Your Day Job. She spoke at our event on design thinking, and that's a bit of a revolutionary act sometimes when you've got a room full of typically folks in the legal services industry. And of all the feedback we got on the event we had, that's what people were asking for more of, which wasn't a surprise to us, but it was nice to get that validation. And I think that's going to continue, probably for all of us. Elements of design thinking are going to be a big part of what drives things forward, because the challenges are typically either understanding or adoption or fluidity of use if it's a product or service, and I think we're gonna see that. I'm disappointed I've only got so many days here at Stanford. I would love to do more with the D school here and that sort of thing. I think that is definitely going to continue and will be a bigger part of everybody's curriculum.
One comment for us, again, we're super action-oriented. We do a monthly members-only mastermind session where we have the members of our community can join, and it's on a specific topic. And we actually mostly don't bring in outside experts. We have people who are in our community that are experts. So we did one on sales. We did one on digital marketing. I'm doing one on hiring. We have one on public speaking and PR, especially in front of a camera, and the tips around that. So we're bringing practical things that are self-learned just from people who have been doing this stuff. And then you get like a closed network, which is really cool, because you have people say, well, like, hey, we're like banner ads on Above the Law. Does that really get you any business? I'm like, no, apparently. And do you so people are giving real advice and real honest advice on their personal experience on where they lost money, where they made money, what worked, what didn't work. And to us, that's just the practical application of running a business, and it's not necessarily legal. It can apply to every business, but it's amongst a group of legal tech entrepreneurs who are all kind of fighting the same fight.
Anybody else?
I would just add that I think we've only scratched the surface really on getting lawyers working, like a real multidisciplinary approach to solving problems in these areas. And we're doing some of those things at Michigan State, and we're bringing people from the computer science school and the business school and design programs there at Michigan State. There are just so many opportunities across the industry to do more of that. And you can look to other industries as examples on how they actually encourage collaboration and working together. And there's just much more to be done in this space.
Micha, both you and Dan are at academic institutions. Where do you see legal education going in terms of what you're doing? How receptive are today's students to this sort of multidisciplinary approach to law and legal tech?
So generally speaking, I think legal education is very reluctant to change. In Germany, I think we have the same legal education since 150 years maybe, so very little has changed. When I see the landscape in Germany, I think there may be like one or two law schools who have understood that something needs to be done, something needs to be changed. So it's maybe not a very positive outlook. But I think a lot of students, a lot of young lawyers see that something needs to be done because career tracks change. It's more difficult to become a partner, and I think there's some pressure, there's some interest from young lawyers, from law students to change something. But we heard it today. Maybe law students are not at the forefront of innovation, of being very risky. So I think it's a real challenge to find the right format, to find the right setting in order to help law students to develop this kind of new mindset, new way of thinking, and combine it with the traditional legal education. I think it's almost impossible to change or to completely change the legal education. It's more like a clever add-on you need to find for this traditional legal education.
It's interesting to talk about it being an add-on, and that's I think the way it is right now, and it's a struggle to even do this as an add-on a lot of times. There's so much more value that could be added in the law schools, so there's a lot of space to do things here. And I think the other thing is once we see more adoption as an add-on, then there's all kinds of opportunities. I was talking with someone last night who said, well, we don't want to change the first-year curriculum. But in the first-year curriculum, even if you accept that learning to think like a lawyer in that first-year curriculum is so important, and there is a lot of value there, I believe. But so many contracts classes, for example, are taught, and the students don't ever see an example of a contract, right? And there's so much more that could be done to improve legal education, and adding classes on the business of law, introducing students to technology. We talked about Jeff Carr this morning. It was actually Casey Flaherty in the legal technology test. I look at technology as kind of three pieces. There's the basic legal technology, just using Word and PDFs and Excel, and so many students leave law school and have no idea how to use Excel, don't know what metadata is. How can you practice in the world today and not understand what metadata is? You talk about ethical obligations, right? So in a law school, we need to do a better job training students just in this basic stuff. In the legal profession, we're creating content, right? That's our job. We're professional writers. We need to know how to use those tools. And then kind of in the middle part of it is just document automation and expert systems. And then artificial intelligence and machine learning, natural language processing, all the stuff on top of that. But there's so much more that could be done. I'm certainly not a proponent of cutting law school down to 2 years like people talked about. I just think we need to use those 3 years much better, and we can add a lot more value.
Rebecca, do you get students participating in your events? And what's their interest and what's their input?
Absolutely. There's a lot of law schools in DC. We need their participation. I don't know. I guess my answer to this question is a couple different things. In terms of the design thinking question, the closest things that we've done has been the accessibility hackathon, where we had hardware and software hacks, and it we were talking about 508 and how to better write policy for 508. There was a hack the law component, and then there's a straight up UX necessary component to some of the tools that were being created, and not just UX for an able-bodied regular person, but people that need different constraints. But then some of the other things that we've talked about has been like hacking on government forms. And if you haven't checked out CFPB's e-regulations, they do a really good job at showing changes in line, which is like with all the context, which is like the greatest difficulty in providing like legal information to people. But I really like Dan's point about like not only do we need to add different types of disciplines to legal education, but we need more technically literate law graduates. And this comes up over and over again. And so curriculum like that is really helpful too. And so, like, I think we have enough examples in the U.S. I don't know, or budding examples that we can learn from. Stanford is one of these examples. Georgetown Law is another example. Some of the stuff that Harvard is doing is great. Just examples of where technology is part of the course. And I also think that focus courses on pop courses that are if you could have some sort of track where you're learning about cell phone search and seizure information through a variety of classes. Like we're seeing cell phone stuff come up over and over again. But yeah, we definitely have student participants, and some of our star computer software developers are now in their first or second year law school in DC. So they already know how to code, and now they're trying to learn the legal elements. So we see it go back and forth.
I see we're getting close to the end here. I wondered if there were any questions from the audience before we. Yeah.
Super grateful to you guys. I actually met Dan at the LA Hackers. Super grateful to Jules and what you guys are involved with. I'm just curious for you to hear from each of you about what the last couple of years have been like in terms of what you see. I mean, I'm excited about these communities happening, but I wish we had 100 times as much as we do. And also kind of what trends you see. I'm sort of reluctant to ask you about trends because we just saw an hour ago that you can get virtually sued for predicting trends, and I'm jealous about the report thing. But I would love to hear what you guys see going forward, what the next couple of years are going to be like about this too. From each of you, I think you've all got different perspectives on this.
I'll start. It is early days, but it has accelerated, and the ecosystem is vibrant. The echo chamber is a nice security blanket. I will say this: there will be a lot of blood on the floor. People seem to forget the fact that anytime there's a burgeoning industry, what tends to happen is the more mature it gets, the more attention that gets focused to it, the more folks that don't really belong in it start to join, and there will be a lot of failures, and I think people have to be prepared for that. And that's really, I think, what drives a lot of the communities to build in the first place, is to try and give a better prospect of success for people that want to take the entrepreneurial journey, is what I'm mostly interested in. So that's the one thing I would say, is that people have to be prepared for the fact that there will be very visible failures, along with the Mr. Happy here, I realize, along with the many ones that you don't see. At the same time, and by extension, we are in the throes of the most exciting period ever to be in legal services. I say that all the time, and I truly do mean it. There are going to be more businesses created in legal services that are creating value and not just servicing lawyers, and that's what I see in the next 5 years. Entirely new streams of business that did not exist previously.
So I think right now it's incredibly hard to be an entrepreneur and to raise money and to grow a business in whatever industry you're in. It's just a little bit harder in the legal industry, or a lot harder depending on who you are and what you're doing. But it is, I hope that in the next couple of years it will get a little bit easier. We're already seeing companies fail a lot. One of our Evolve Law members 2 days ago is no longer, and it's a good company that had traction. That, not my place to say if it was the right thing to grow or not, but if it was in a different industry, they would have gotten more funding, they would have gotten more attention, they'd have grown faster. So I think the point for me of building these communities is to help us get past that really painful, horrible part where it just sucks to build a company right now in the legal tech space. And it's still going to suck and it's still going to be hard, but hopefully it will be a little bit easier.
So I don't want to try to predict the future. I just think we need to start rolling up our sleeves and getting the work. There are a lot of things we can do to improve legal service delivery, and we should start doing it right now. I love talking about artificial intelligence and all these cool things, and can robots practice law? But let's start with processes. Let's start with standards. Let's start doing things that we can do today to improve legal service delivery and serve more people.
So I think I forgot to plug this, but the last couple years, in terms of like what has happened, at least with like the bottom-up like hacking space, I tweeted out a link to some of the winners or like hackathon projects that we've done under the FutureLaw hashtag and LegalHack, so you can check out some of the stuff that's happened the last couple years and read more about that. In terms of what I see happening, I think like sometimes you're frustrated. You're like, I wish people had. Or I wish legal minds had more technical skills or vice versa. I think we're going to see both of those things ramp up very, very quickly. Also, I have a data law sticker on my computer, the Data Act, the Financial Data Standard Law that passed 2 years ago. The stuff that's going through Congress right now that has to do with technology is so important. We just need to make sure that we have as much technical input for that stuff. So like the future is obviously stuff like this, and we need to be paying attention to that.
I want to add maybe one prediction. It's more like a wish. My hope would be that we see more collaboration between Europe and the US. A lot of startups, US startups, maybe coming over to Europe. Maybe some European startups coming over to the US. More collaboration on different levels. Because I think we can learn a lot. Because I think the market is more mature here, and we have to catch up in a way. So that would be my hope.
One more thing, which is we need a really big legal tech success. So some of the folks in the room, like, go public, make a lot of money, be really successful. It's going to make our lives a lot easier because we get a lot of like, ooh, there haven't been any really major legal tech successes. Yeah, talking to you. So make that happen, and it's gonna make a huge difference.
This is less a question. Really quick, it's less a question than an offer, because David mentioned about the outreach that you're doing to the general legal community. My name's Warren Egan, and I chair the ABA Business Law Section's Legal Analytics Working Group. So Business Law Section has 50,000 lawyers, and the working group's focus is going to be on helping them all transition. So if anybody on the panel, anybody in the room, wants to take advantage of that channel to help that transition, just come see me. Talk to me about it.
That's great. David, I'd like to give a couple of plugs if I could.
Okay.
I'm Shane. I'm a dirty capitalist. We have a couple of events coming up that are of interest. We announced today we're doing an event with an outfit called Thomson Reuters. You might have heard of them in the fall in Toronto, and we think it's going to be a very exciting event. If you like this event, you would probably like that event. What I can say about it thus far is that the date that it's going to happen is the 20th of September, and Dan Katz is going to be our keynote. And again, I've used the opportunity, I can say, to come here this year, and I've rounded up a couple of other very compelling speakers in this space. Some of what I would say are the successes that we can all model against. So please do consider that in September. If you're on the West Coast, we have an event on the 26th of September, which will be at the beautiful offices of McCarthy Tetro, and again, touching on a lot of this stuff, and we'd love to have your participation in that as well.
And I'd like to make a plug for what I would love for all of you to do with the stuff that we do that takes a lot of effort and coordination is you're not going to remember what we say at these panels. Like, you're going to go and forget tomorrow. But make something happen out of this. Make a good business connection. Actually go back to your firm or your company and try to use some of the legal tech products. And then actually tell us about it. Because if we facilitated that, we want to know. So make stuff happen as a result of us like having these communities as platforms. And then let us know that it's actually working.
That's great. It's a good place to wrap it up. I appreciate everybody's time. We could talk for another hour, I'm sure.